This is Dr. Ira B. Bryant. Dr. Ira B. Bryant was the principal over at Booker T. Washington from 1940 up until 1958. And that's when HISD moved him to open up the new Kashmere. And the new Kashmere was on the corner of Hirsch Road and North Loop, which today we call it Kelly Street. And when Dr. Ira Bryant went to open up Kashmere Junior and Senior High School, it was in 1958 when they gave it to blacks. And when he left Booker T. Washington, it was still in 4th Ward. It hadn't moved to Studewood. And his band director over there at Booker T. Washington, he took with him to open up Kashmere, and that was none other than Conrad Johnson. Now, let me understand this for you young people, so y'all can understand how that went. Before integration, 1968, and when we were still segregated, all the HISD schools went like this. You start in the elementary in the 1st grade. You don't graduate out of elementary until you finish the 6th grade. And then it wasn't no middle school, they called it a junior high school. And you started in junior high school in the 7th grade, and it went all the way up to the 9th grade. And then when you graduated out of the 9th grade, that's when you start going to senior high school. And that senior high school went up until the 10th grade, until the 12th grade. And later on, after they integrated, they decided to give all of the students 4 years like they do in college. So therefore, you graduated from elementary school in the 6th grade, and you went to middle school, which is now called middle school, from the 6th grade to the 9th grade. And then from the 9th grade, you graduated and go into senior high school, which from the 9th to the 12th. Now that's how it went. And Conrad Johnson was his band director. When he left Booker T. Washington, he took Conrad Johnson with him, and Conrad Johnson started the Kashmere Stage Band, which went on. Now when Dr. Ira Bryant left to open up the new Kashmere in 1958, he wanted to have a strong football program. And he did not want to take his football coach from over at Booker T. Washington. He wanted to have somebody on the north side that was raised up on the north side and knew how to be a winner. And that was Coach Billy Matthews. Billy Matthews was the first coach for the Kashmere Rams football team in 1958. And before that, he had a winning program over at E.O. Smith, where he was the head coach of E.O. Smith's Mustang football team. And Coach Billy Matthews also went to school with Barbara Jordan. Billy Matthews finished Wheatley in 1948 when it was the original Wheatley. And it was a junior in a high school. It wasn't no E.O. Smith when he finished. Now when Barbara Jordan finished later in 1952, yes, they opened up E.O. Smith, and Phyllis Wheatley at 4900 Market Street became the first black senior high school. Senior high school started in the 10th to the 12th. And Barbara Jordan started over at Phyllis Wheatley with Billy Matthews. But when Barbara Jordan started over at Phyllis Wheatley, it was still a junior and a senior high school. But when she was in the 10th grade, 4900 Market Street opened up. And she graduated from Phyllis Wheatley ever on 4900 Market Street. But when she started...
All right, everybody, I'm coming to you live right out here in Trinity Garden, y'all. I mean, I'm right here on the corner of Wallyville and Bennington. And it's just one block off of Lockwood. And where we at? Kashmere Rams. That's what I'm talking about, man. Kashmere Rams, man. One of the first schools, high schools, to be built out here in Trinity Garden. Because when the school first was built, it was built for white people. And it was located on the corner of Hirsch and North Loop. which we call today Kelly Street. And in 1968, when things integrated, they built a new senior high school out here in Trinity Garden. When it was first built for the white people out there in 1957, well, whites did not want that school because too many blacks were moving in the neighborhood. So they gave the school to blacks in 1958. And Dr. Ira Bryant, who was the first principal at Kashmere Garden Junior Senior High School, because that was the name of it. And Dr. Ira Bryant had came from Booker T. Washington. They brought him in to open up the new Kashmere Garden Senior High School in 1958. And when they brought him in, quite natural, Dr. Bryant brought in people from Booker T. Washington, which was located out there in 4th Ward at that time. They hadn't moved to Cedarwood. And when he brought in some of the people with him to open up the new Kashmere Garden Junior Senior High School, which we know today as Key Junior High School, Key Middle School, then he brought in one of the best band directors he could possibly bring in, and that was Conrad Johnson. And by the way, they got a statue over there with Conrad Johnson to keep the legacy going. They just show you how Kashmere Rams are into their legacy. And when Dr. Ira Bryant also brought in Mr., which we call him as Coach Billy Matthews. And Billy Matthews was over at E.O. Smith. And when Dr. Bryant opened up the new Kashmere Garden Junior Senior High School, he knew he needed a good football program. And Coach Billy Matthews came from E.O. Smith. And Coach Billy Matthews was a product of Phyllis Wheatley football team with, quite natural, Frank Walker. So when the school opened up in 1958 for blacks, you had Conrad Johnson, the band director, and then you had Billy Matthews. Now, something about Conrad Johnson, he created the Kashmere Stage Band that went all over the world touring. That just show you how famous the Kashmere Stage Band was. And then you look at Coach Billy Matthews. Not only did he graduate from Phyllis Wheatley, and not only was he the first football coach of the Kashmere Ram football team in 1958, but he became the first black NFL assistant coach for the San Francisco 49ers. That's right, he got 3 Super Bowl rings. He coached the great Johnny, what we might know him today as Jerry Rice, was up under him. One of the best football players that come out of Kashmere was Delvin Williams. And not only Delvin Williams played for the 49ers at that time, but you also had Joe Montana. And Coach Matthews got started right here at Kashmere, at the Kashmere Rams. The football team was the first football coach that Kashmere had. And when Coach Billy Matthews left, he came over here even when they integrated in 1968. He came over here to coach the football team until Frank Walsh called him in to come out on the West Coast to start the West Coast offense in Stanford. And then from then on, Coach Walsh took him on his staff, and he went to San Francisco, and the rest of it is history. But you know, this is some legacy at Kashmere Senior High School today. And when they moved out here in 1968, they couldn't keep the name of Kashmere Garden because it's no longer in Kashmere Garden now. It's in Trinity Garden. So they kept the name and dropped the garden off of it and just call it Kashmere Rams. And they changed the colors, but they kept the mascot of the Rams. And that's what they are today. And that's where we're at today. We're at the home of the Rams, better known on the north side in Trinity Garden and Kashmere Garden as the Kashmere Rams. And it's an honor and a privilege to think about some of the history here. You know, I look at some of the history. I look at Miss Wanda Adams, who went on to be city council lady, then went on to be on the school board, and now she's part of a judge. I look at the now athletic director of HISD, Mr. Walker. Both of them young people came out of this Kashmere that I'm sitting on right here. Kashmere Rams, right here off of Bennington and Wallyville, which most people don't know. Wallyville is just one block off of Lockwood. And there's some history here. And I'm so thankful to be at this historical school because it meant so much for the people out here in Trinity Garden. Because before they opened up, before the white people gave them Kashmere Garden Junior Senior High School, all these people from 1957 on back to 1927 when they opened up Wheatley. All these people had to go way over the 5th Ward if they wanted their high school diploma. And they had to go to Phyllis Wheatley to get their high school diploma. And then in 1950, when they seen it was so crowded and Wheatley was so full, because people from Studewood had to come over here to Wheatley, over on Market Street. Plus, the people in Trinity Garden had to come out here to Phyllis Wheatley on Market. So it was crowded. So finally they decided to build a middle school when integration came. And they changed Kashmere Garden Junior High School. They changed it into Key Middle School. But it's just so much history here in Trinity Garden. And we got to go and show you